Glad to do it. And again, as you can tell, I'm a big fan. So please keep up the good work.
Great insights. Using a 360 evaluation, among other things, can help your leaders work in the most effective ways possible by taking the feedback of their team and utilizing it in a way that will help that leader grow and in turn be successful. And on top of leadership development, some companies might still be looking to bring on talent. So you want to make sure, especially now, that you bring on talent that will work for you and not against you. What I'd like to do now is speak with Bob O'Leary, the Executive Vice President of Philadelphia Insurance Companies. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today, Bob.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
We appreciate this. You've just done a validation study.
Yes.
And part of that, in terms of a validation study, the notion is to get a clear sense of who your top performers are, what distinguishes them, and then how to both hire people like that and then develop people who are currently on board who have the potential to be top performers.
That's right. That's right.
Tell us what you learned from this.
Well, I think we learned that our top performers share certain characteristics. There's not a lot of disparity between their ego drives and their empathy level and their abstract reasoning skills. So it made us feel good. We're in a hiring mode right now. We're looking to hire 40 new candidates. So as we look to hire these people, we wanted to hire people that were more like our top performers than like our bottom performers.
And these are for salespeople, you're
Yes, sales and marketing reps. That's right. So I gave a presentation actually to our national sales meeting about the validation study, and I shared with the people what was important and showed them the overlay on the management dynamics profile graph. And I said, now listen, all of you people out here should meet with your manager and see where you fit versus this overlay so you can see if there's certain things you can do to work on improving areas. And it was received very, very positively by everyone. So it was great.
Certainly it gives you a model to hire for, and that's important. And you are in a hiring mode right now.
Yes, yes.
So you're in a very fortunate position. Hiring people that fit this certain model is one thing, Bob, but when you have somebody there already, if they don't quite fit the model, what in your experience have you found that they can develop, and what can't they change?
Well, obviously, I don't think someone can develop their abstract reasoning. They either have it or they don't. But someone who has poor self-structure and needs help on organizational skills, you can do that from a management standpoint. If you have someone who is a little bit too aggressive and a little less assertive, if they work closely with their manager or a mentor, sometimes they can learn those skills to maybe tone down their aggressiveness. It made a lot of sense to do it that way.
It's interesting where you're talking about how you can work with somebody on changing certain things but not others, and how particularly in tough times people often fall back on the ways that they naturally approach things.
That's right.
Are you seeing a lot of that going on right now because these are particularly tough times for selling?
You know, I have to say that we've populated our sales force right now with such high achievers, whereas in the past we might have to work with 30 to 40% of our people on a regular basis trying to overcome their deficiencies. I think that number is down closer to probably 20% now.
Mm-hmm.
So the talent pool that we have acquired seems to have become better over the years, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that our company 20 years ago was tiny, and now we're part of the 13th largest insurance company in the world. We used to have to convince people to want to come to work for us 15 years ago. Now we have people kicking the door down trying to get in.
Mm-hmm.
So that helps. And I also think that our management team is more experienced and seasoned, and we have a better understanding of what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm. The idea that this is a large and exciting place to work for has made it much easier for you to attract the right people.
Yes.
Tell us, if you would, Bob, about how you develop the talent that you have.
We have very stringent metrics for just about every position in the company. So there are measurable standards that we expect people to abide by, whether it's the number of calls they make in a week to the dollar amount of sales they bring in. But even in other areas, from underwriters who are expected to quote a certain amount of business every week, support staff, they're supposed to have so many what we call transactions a week that are measurable. So the way we develop people, we give them the track to run on. Their managers work with them very, very, very closely initially. We assign them a mentor to go to for issues that they may feel uncomfortable discussing with their manager. Give them a little more and a little more and a little more to do on their own and see how they respond. And if they respond well, you give them a little bit more to work with. If they don't respond well, you pull them back. If you take someone who is doing a great job, we have a career track that they can follow from a promotion standpoint. If someone's not doing well, we have progressive, discipline that we go through.
It's important to be strong in both of those areas.
No question about it. I'm a big believer that if someone is not doing a good job, it's not only their fault, but it's our fault. And oftentimes you get a person who may just have not been the appropriate person for the job, and you're actually doing them a favor, and there's a sense of relief on their end if you part company.
Bob, when you're dealing with someone who you have to put on a performance plan,
yes.
By the time somebody's put on a plan, what percentage of the people end up making it? And for some people, it's a wake-up call, and they get re-energized, and they find something in themselves that they didn't realize they had before. And for others, it's just signing off time.
Probably 20% make it and 80% don't. I think when we get to that stage, when it becomes that dire, and some of that, I think, is because that most managers will look for every alternative other than to do that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what is it, Bob, you think, in the 20% who make it? What do they have, or what do they turn on?
We have some salespeople that are off on an island where they're working out of their house in a remote location. Sometimes the manager needs to look in the mirror and say, boy, I'm really not spending enough time with this person. So as part of the progressive discipline track, they say, I will come and work with you X number of times a month over the next 6 months. And all of a sudden it works. Mm-hmm. They find out that they click a little bit from a coaching standpoint. Some people respond to that in a positive way.
Describe to us, if you would, Bob, what the best managers have and how they're able to identify that potential in some people and bring it out.
I think that anytime someone's put in charge of people for the first time, their initial want in their role is to be liked by the people they manage. Mm-hmm. So once you get past that, the best people are the ones that they're not emotional about making decisions. They say, listen, here are the expectations. We expect you to do this, 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 and this, and if you don't do it, we're going to have some issues. They also are not giving people directives to do things that they wouldn't do themselves, so they're not taking impossible Herculean tasks and pawning them off on their people. So they're willing to get in the trenches and help them out. They're very open. Their people know that if they ask a question, they're going to get an answer, whether it's the answer they want to hear or not. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they're going to get that answer in a timely manner. I think that oftentimes bad managers, when they get a dicey situation with an employee that may result in some kind of an emotional response, they have a tendency to back burner dealing with those issues as opposed to just getting them out in the open right now. And I think that once they do that, or once they see someone else do that, and they realize, gee, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, and all I'm doing is laying out the truth.
We were talking before about developing salespeople. If you could just talk about managers that you've seen develop, but an example of how somebody improved as a manager over time?
Oh, my goodness. I have a person that's worked for me for about 20 years. I hired the person. They really were one of these young people that lacked discipline, had several one-on-ones with the person, really turned their whole life around, and not only their business performance, and now they manage a bunch of people for me, and I mean, he's just tremendous.
That's almost like a Jekyll and Hyde, the way you've described it. I mean, was that a change that happened over time?
Oh, yes. The respect that they would then generate from people that they were dealing with that they didn't have before, it sort of was something that was self-fulfilling. I mean, once they started getting that by approaching business in a totally different manner than they were before, it became contagious, and they just really latched onto it and just understood the deal.
How are you developing and making sure that your top performers know how important they are to you and to the company right now?
I mean, we're big in performance-based pay. If you bring in a ton of business, you make more money than someone who brings in half a ton of business. Uh-huh. So that's one way. We've had sales contests and trips that people have won for doing a good job, and we still have those for our top performers quarterly. Our top people, not only are they friends, but they're competitors, friendly competitors. So we like to structure little competitions so people will strive to achieve these goals. We break them down quarterly, and we have quarterly contests.
That's excellent, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you.
Some innovative ideas and practical advice from Bob O'Leary. Leadership is certainly being challenged like never before. And your top performers, who will become your future leaders, is where your focus should be if you want to not just get through these turbulent times, but to thrive when you're on the other side.
Yes, the individual does need to be motivated. We find that makes a huge difference in the impact that coaching has. So for a minimal investment, coaching can have a huge impact on leadership development and in turn for the organization's success.
This has been great, Joe. You've really helped to clarify why it's so important for organizations now more than ever to invest in developing their leaders.
It is more important than ever. And one reason is because people are being asked to do more than they did before. They're being asked to take on roles that are different than they had before. And as we talked about, even with coaching, senior leaders don't have the time to be coaching people and bringing them along and teaching them how to lead. And so this is a very good time to actually reassess your organization in terms of the talent that you have. And it's important to cast a wide net because sometimes there's talent where you haven't looked and you haven't been aware of before. And how you can keep these people in the organization, retain them, and keep them engaged. And in order to do that, you've got to be developing people. That's one reason people stay at organizations. There's been many surveys done that show that that's one of the top things that keeps people in a particular company. They feel that they're valued enough, that resources are being spent on them, which makes them a valuable person to the organization. But in terms of developing these people, what we have found over the years is that typical training doesn't really stick, doesn't really work. You can learn some wonderful techniques, tools, skills in a workshop or a training program, but unless you go out and use those skills in your day-to-day work environment immediately, that you often lose those. So we help people work through real-life situations, learning from mistakes, learning how to do things better as they go so that all of this learning sticks. So we work with organizations to identify high potential talent and to work with these pools of talent in a way that the development can stick and can become part of the culture and part of the fabric of how the organization works.
Terrific. Thank you for bringing to light how important it is to focus on identifying top talent and developing future leaders. It's really why people want to stay in an organization, because they want to be part of something where they feel valued and they are contributing in a way that matters and is truly meaningful. Thank you so much for joining us today. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but we will be sure to answer all the questions you've sent to us by the end of this week. Again, all registrants will receive an email with links to the recording and slides for today's presentation. More information on investing in your top performers is available on our website at www.caliperonline.com. That's www.caliperonline.com. Again, if you have any other questions, please feel free to contact us at 609-524-1200 or email info@calipercorp.com. Thank you for attending today's session. We hope you've learned much and that you can join us again for our next webinar.